Good morning. It is Thursday, June 19th, 2025. Welcome to the Neal Larson Show, East Idaho. It's good to have you on. And yesterday was incredible. The issue that we brought up when you talk about public lands, holy schmercolies, we're gonna dip our toe in that again today because we're sort of forming. There's more lands, no pun intended, but there's kind of more of a political landscape to this than we had yesterday. It was fairly new. In fact, when I interviewed Senator Crapo, he said, we're still studying it. I really can't talk with great depth here on this. And I got, you know what's funny about listeners? They expect you to know everything about everything instantly, and quite often it's just a developing issue. And so it was a fairly new story yesterday, but one of the listeners said, nothing what you're talking about resembles the actual proposal. I'm like, well, I wouldn't say nothing. I mean, he knew generally what we were talking about, which was Mike Lee's proposal, but and I still don't think we know which land and exactly how it would happen. So we will try to get to that. We also have the Israel-Iran conflict continuing to grace headlines along every media outlet and speculation. It's almost there's this sense of waiting, and it centers not around Israel. It centers around Donald Trump, and there are reports that he is warming up to using a military asset, a U.S. military asset, to obliterate the core of Iran's nuclear capability, which is this 300-foot deep facility in the mountains in Iran called Fordo, and using bunker-busting ordnance to go in and just wipe it out. Now, in my mind, and I say this a little bit flippantly, what are you waiting for? All right, you're not. There are no civilian lives at stake in that area. From my understanding, it is fairly remote. If you do take people out, it's people who are likely hostiles that are working on the nuclear program that would threaten our allies, our interests in that region. And, you know, quite often, usually when you talk about this, there is a concern, and an understandable one, that innocent civilians are going to be harmed by this. Trump did say evacuate Tehran. So there may be, and I don't know if it would be the U.S. military or if it would just be Israel using our weapons, but there may be some strategic bombing in Tehran. Also, these reports about Iranian officials leaving the country in a government plane to places like, is it Oman? I think that's where they went to. So we'll see. The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, said that the supreme leader must cease to exist, which is pointing to regime change in Iran, that would be their aim. And I will tell you, I'm okay with that. If that's a secondary impact of wiping out their nuclear capability, if we wipe out the regime and we can set up an environment where the people of Iran can reclaim their freedom and their liberty, at least some measure of it, then so be it. I'm okay with that. No, I'm not a warmonger. No, I'm not for an endless war or any kind of long foreign entanglement here. But I do think right now we have them on their heels, them being the corrupt and evil leadership of Iran. And there's a window of opportunity here. And I do think that we ought to take it in a limited but effective fashion. So not that my opinion really carries a lot of weight in the big scheme of things, but if you've been wondering the same thing, but people around you are wringing their hands over this, very, very worried, I will tell you, I don't think Trump has any interest whatsoever in having a long involvement there, similar to what we've seen in Afghanistan or Vietnam, Afghanistan a couple of times. That's not Trump. He wants it to be effective. He wants it to happen quickly, and he wants results. And I think that We are so conditioned to presidents and the military-industrial complex getting us into these wars because it is billions and billions and billions of dollars that are made when wars happen around the world. So there's this terrible conflict of interest that's baked into the system, and I don't think Trump wants to play that game at all. He has, in fact, it's probably one of the big reasons why Butler, Pennsylvania happened, that he doesn't play the game the way the game is normally played. So we have that. We also have interesting stuff happening. I stumbled across this clip, and I'm finding that I am enjoying these archived clips, these throwback clips, and then applying them to today. This is then Senator Barack Obama running in the 2008 presidential primary.
This administration, the Bush administration, has done nothing to control the problem that we have. We've had 5 million undocumented workers come over the borders since George Bush took office. It has become an extraordinary problem. And the reason the American people are concerned is because they are seeing their own economic position slip away. And oftentimes, employers are exploiting these undocumented workers. They're not paying the minimum wage. They're not observing worker safety laws. As president, I will make sure that we finally have the kind of border security that we need. That's step number one. Step number two is to take on employers. Right now, an employer has more of a chance of getting hit by lightning than be prosecuted for hiring an undocumented worker. That has to change. They have to be held accountable. Start shedding some light on the problem, and we can once again be a nation of laws and a nation of immigrants. That's what I intend to do as president of the United States.
Okay, so that is then Senator Barack Obama running for president in 2008. I just wanted to play that clip, and I hope that it brings comfort to you Democrats listening and reminding you haven't always been insane. You haven't always been complete nut jobs when it comes to certain issues in America, like trans kids and abortion, late term, and immigration. You haven't. There have been moments where you have been grounded in reality. That being said, do I think Barack Obama actually had the intention of living up to everything he just said in a campaign? Absolutely not. He was not great on the border either, but he knew at least what common sense was. He was that connected with the political reality. I don't know if he was connected to the real reality, but he was connected to the political reality enough that he had to speak common sense. Even if he didn't perform common sense, he spoke it. And so I just wanted to remind you, there is a past that is defensible there, Democrats, if you're curious. So Jim Acosta's making the news. I don't know if you saw this or not. He's not with CNN anymore, which is probably good for CNN. But all the time that he was on during the first Trump presidency, of course, he was the constant Trump antagonist. He's the one that would go and interrupt the president while he was speaking. In fact, he was the U.S. senator that interrupted Kristi Noem's presser the other day and got taken to the ground. That's Jim Acosta, except Jim was smart enough not to try to physically move toward Donald Trump in a threatening manner, and so he never got taken to the ground. But the show up, the disrupt, that was Jim Acosta during CNN. And they've ousted him because I think he was one of those faces that delegitimized them as a network. But here he is. He's on some Zoom YouTube thing. Doesn't really matter. He made this horrible joke. Listen.
I got a question, though. Where are the ICE raids at the Trump properties?
Yes.
Can somebody call ICE on the Trump golf course in Virginia?
Yes,
You're telling me there's nobody in there that is undocumented or has some kind of squirreliness going on with their paperwork? Give me a break. Hey, how many immigrants has he married? He's got one buried at his golf course in New Jersey. Isn't she buried by the first hole or the second tee or something like that?
The first hole, yeah, it's the first hole.
Immigrants
why
always
he
doing the
doesn't
jobs
like
that
CNN.
Americans don't want to do.
He's
Isn't that what
funny.
it
Does not want to get.
Yeah. Yeah, Jim Acosta actually did that. He just made a joke about Donald Trump's dead ex-wife as a cheap shot on the immigration issue. Now, again, Acosta is not with CNN anymore, but if he had been and he had said anything similar to this, although he's probably smart enough not to say that if he's employed by CNN, but if he had said that, if I were over CNN, I would have figured out a way to fire him 5 times over. That's a terrible thing. You know, let's go back a couple of weeks to the Terry Moran of ABC News and the things that he wrote one late night on a weekend about the hate mongers that Donald Trump and Stephen Miller are. He lost his gig at ABC News over that. This is far worse. You are laughing and mocking a woman who was pretty well respected. Ivana Trump, even Trump had very good things to say about her. Of course, she's the mother of Ivanka and I think maybe one of the other kids. Anyway, she for Acosta to say that is just terrible. But he's no stranger to saying dumb things. We played this earlier this morning, and he basically said farmers, country folk are stupid.
The far right in this country has kind of figured out a way to infiltrate, the heartland and to, basically pull, mom and pop from the farm to their point of view. And as it turns out, a lot of those folks vote in these elections. And a lot of those folks have been completely led astray. I hate to say it, but they've just been completely led astray. And we've all just let this happen on our watch with essentially a business model for delivering the news in this country that just does not work anymore.
You know what's fascinating about this position that he's trying to take, that they have been completely led astray. And we could certainly apply this to rural America. We've got lots of rural America right here in Idaho. But what's interesting is there is no nod whatsoever to the degree to which the left has moved even further to the left in recent years. If you go back not that long ago, 30 to 35 years ago, Democrats were a very, very viable force in Idaho. They held close to half of the legislature. We had Democrat governors in John Evans and Cecil Andrus. And their names are still revered and respected in Idaho, even among a lot of Republicans. Didn't agree with them, but they recognized the impact that they had. And so you have to ask yourself, well, what changed? Jim Acosta would say the far right has infiltrated rural America, Ma and Pa and the farmers. Well, I would say maybe your migration, your side of the aisle. Migrating from abortion is rare and early in the pregnancy to kill the baby right up to the point of birth. Might have something to do with it. Your sudden, and it is sudden, I was thinking about this earlier this morning on the trans issue. You want kids, young kids, to be able to have the medical care system in this country lop off their genitals or their breasts. So, because they might be confused about their gender. That might have something to do with it, Jim. Calling patrons of school districts showing up and expressing their concern terrorists under the Biden administration may have had something to do with it, too. And I could go on and on and on. Your insane approach to immigration, your open borders approach to immigration, might have something to do with the alienation of rural America. They've always been conservative, traditionally, and I would even say Republican, but Democrats still had good presence, even in red states in rural America, up until you all went nuts politically. So I love how it's always something else. The left never looks in the mirror and says, could this be something we're doing? You have a few honest people. Bill Maher's one of them. Dan Jones from time to time is willing to do this. You do have a handful of people saying we're the ones that have lost. We're responsible for losing our connection to America. And but the vast majority of them, oh no, they're just holding strong to the narratives. So it's 8:23. We will take your phone calls coming up on this Thursday morning on News Talk 1079. Might have a flash poll. I'm tossing this around in the wake of course of Tucker Carlson, outraged that Ted Cruz didn't know the population of Iran. What do you think of this? Should Ted Cruz know the average annual banana consumption in Rwanda? Should Ted Cruz know the official bird of Pakistan? I would bet you that Ted Cruz does not know how many time zones are in France or the national sport of Bhutan. We'll be back. It's 8:24 now on News Talk 1079. It's the Neal Larson Show on a Thursday.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hey, it's Brad from Now 105.1 and QP99. I'm in the studio here. I love our studios, by the way. Ranger Rick back there. There's Neal and Julie doing their thing. Hey, when you want to advertise on the radio, what do? You call the radio station, right? But what do you do when you want to advertise on Facebook and Instagram and Hulu and Disney Plus and Peacock and the other TV streaming services? You can kind of click around on them and make guesses or read books or take courses online on how to do that advertising. Or you could call us at the radio station. At Sandhill Media, we take care of your local radio and digital marketing. So reach out to us at sandhillmediagroup.com and we'll make sure that your message gets heard and seen wherever your customers are.
It's 8:28 on News Talk 1079. Neal Larson flying solo, but Julie returns in triumphant style tomorrow morning. Looking forward to having her back. I do want to talk with you about Town and Country Gardens really quickly. The 4-step lawn program, still not too late. Show up, get 4 steps, throw down step 1, which is the humates, and maybe give it a couple of days, maybe a week. And water, mow as normal, and then put down step 2, which is your first round of summer food, fertilizer. And you are back on track. And then there are another couple of steps as we head into the fall and winter that are super easy. It just takes minutes for most people with average-sized lawns to apply the product. And you mow, you water like normal, and your lawn should be lush and beautiful. And if you have any questions, they'll answer all of them. In addition to that, they do more than that, obviously. Vegetables for your garden. Flowers for hanging baskets, for house plants, all of that. You can find it at Town and Country Gardens. Julie and I love it there. You will too. South of Idaho Falls on the Yellowstone Highway across from the Budweiser plant. Let's go to the phones. We have standing by Terry in Idaho Falls. Terry, you're on the program. Good morning.
Good morning. I would really very much like to hear a former Democrat call in and tell us why they left the Democratic Party. I would so much like to hear something. I know they're out there, and if the Democrats can't handle it, just turn off the radio.
Yeah, I love that idea, and I will extend that invitation formally here on the program. If you are a former Democrat, you left the party, you got done with them, and I don't even care if you didn't vote for Trump. If you just said, my party's gone bonkers, then we'd love to hear your story. Yeah, so, okay. I like that. I like that a lot. So it's, you look at it, and I don't feel like Idahoans' values have shifted all that much. If you talk to Jim Acosta, he thinks the far right infiltrated rural America and has conned them into believing something new. And I actually believe we continue to believe what we've always believed in. Freedom, liberty, God, families, traditional values. Like, I don't think that the shift has been, I think the shift has happened. I actually think there's been a migration to I'll give you one example. I could probably find more, but I think there's been a migration on some issues, for instance, on LGBTQ issues. It used to be that if you were a traditional conservative religious family and you had a child that came out as gay, or maybe they wouldn't because they lived in fear. I'm grateful now that that has changed to where, you know what? I would hope that even if you're a conservative family, if one of your children is gay, that it's still a very welcoming environment. And I don't think that's true throughout, but I do believe that it is way better than it used to. Now, I don't have any kids who are gay. I've never gone through this, but I have lots of friends who are and have. And I remember even 35, 40 years ago, maybe even a little more recently than that, it was like hush tone whisper. Oh, did you hear so-and-so's gay? Laura, that must be devastating to the family. And now it's a much more common occurrence, and I think people are embracing it more. It's still complicated. I don't want to give the impression that it's just this simple thing that everybody walks through easily now. But I think that conservatives have learned. And where we used to say being gay is a choice, very few people say that anymore. They realize that, no, something's going on here, that it's not the conscious choice that we used to think maybe it was. So I think we have moved on some issues like that, but I think the core values remain the same. And I think it's the left that if you want to ask yourself, if you're a Democrat and you want to ask yourself, why are there, how many Democrats are in the legislature now? Are there 11 out of 105 lawmakers? About 10% of the legislature is Democrat. If you want to ask yourself why, look at your horrific ideas. That's why. I can tell you right now, it's because you were hell-bent on staying married to the National Party. Now, I don't know how else you do it, because that's really difficult. That's a tough row to hoe, to be a state party and to buck the national folks. However, that's the only path forward, and I don't even know if that would be beneficial. But when I see these Idaho Democrats, especially the ones that are the 10% that serve in the Idaho legislature, and they are enthusiastically going to Bernie and AOC's oligarchy tour in Nampa, I'm like, you really want to solidify your very minuscule minority in the legislature, don't you? Because those are the images that are. Don't be deceived that you went there and a few thousand people were screaming and rah-rahing because they had AOC and Bernie there. That's not a good representation of the electorate of Idaho at all. The attendees at the No Kings rally this past Saturday, terrible representation of the overall electorate in Idaho. Yeah, you get these little momentary pockets of enthusiasm happening. But don't be deceived. The conservative force, and I believe this is true, we're going to have a little tussle here if I don't clarify something. I don't believe, even though the formal Democrat minority in the legislature is about 10%, I think if you add the Republicans that vote like them, it's probably closer to 30 to 40%. So the ideas are still being represented. We still have people who don't want true parental choice in education. That was a squeaker. And we still, and I could rattle off a few issues like that where you have Republicans that are there and they're embracing their affiliation with the Republican Party for strategic reasons only. Now, having said that, I think the electorate of Idaho is more conservative than that. I think many of the people that are coming here from outside, from the Californias and the Washingtons and the other states like that, they're coming here because they truly are conservative. And Democrat leadership in their respective states have turned their states into kind of a hellhole, if I want to state it subtly and not bluntly. did you see the story out of Oregon? They had a drag show inside the State House in Oregon. Of course, it's Pride Month. So they had drag queens and performers inside the chambers of their State House. Wild? And I would say much more of that. And we're going to have this is why Oregon, specifically Eugene, you have the the eastern 2/3 of your state wanting to come be with us. That's why. We'll be back. It's 8:37. 8:44 on News Talk 1079. And if you'd like to reach us on the program, the Stones Automotive Group call and text line is 208-542-1079. I am considering a flash poll, and we call this the Tucker Carlson standard here. Should I resign as a talk show host because I don't know the currency of Sao Tome? Just in case, I looked it up. It's the Dobra. I did not prior to. Do you realize that I have been a talk show host for nearly 30 years now? Almost 30. The actual Neal Larson show is about 19 years old, but I've been doing talk radio for almost 30 years. This whole time, I'm a fraud. I have not known the currency of Sao Tome. And if I'm going to be totally honest, I didn't even know there was a place called Sao Tome. I also have not known the size of Vatican City's army. I do now. It's 135 soldiers, but I didn't know prior to this. Do you know what else I didn't know? This is confession time here, and I'll ask you. You tell me via text. You can text it in if you want to call and chastise me. I'm totally open to that. I will take your lashing, your tongue lashing, for not knowing these things. This is one of the hardest for me. All right, so bear with me. I get a little emotional over this upon realizing how fraudulent I have been as a talk show host, because I didn't know the height of the tallest sand dune in Namibia. It's about 383 meters. I mean, I know that now. I'm learning, and I hope that you'll offer me the opportunity to save myself here and give me a second chance. But if you think I should resign, then you know what? I'll take that under advisement. But I wanted to apologize. I have not met the Tucker Carlson standard of being an informed person. So I'll do better. Let's go to the phones. Hi, caller. How are you today?
Good morning.
Hi.
I'm going to test you.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
Okay. You should know this. Who is King Leonardo's faithful servant?
Let me think. Let me dig back in my memory bank. Odie Cologne.
Oh, geez, you do know it. All right, you passed.
Okay. Okay, can I make a confession here? As you were asking, I was typing into Chat GPT, and it took it a minute, so I had to buy some time.
That's cheating.
I got you. All right, thank you for the call. 208-542-1079. Caller, how are you today?
Really good. Enjoy listening to your show. Say, if you want to ask a question, people should Tucker Carlson quit his talk show, because Mark Levin explained yesterday that Tucker Carlson didn't realize that the Iranians have been trying to kill President Trump. He's number one on their list.
Yeah.
And Tucker didn't know that was happening. He didn't think it was.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And I hate fighting with other conservatives. I'll be honest with you, but Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens is in this same boat here. They have to make up fraudulent things in order to make their argument that this is unprovoked, that this is somehow preemptive, when in reality, and somebody texted in, I'm going to fact check this, but Iran's already killed some of our soldiers. Like they've already done things that have they threaten us from a geopolitical standpoint. They do things that are threatening us. And so it isn't unprovoked. It's not like they're this peaceful nation that we're proactively going out and wanting to bomb.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They've been killing Americans for years.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. I did not hear that part of Levin when he talked about that part of Tucker Carlson and not knowing. Which there was another moment too, and I don't want to dwell on this for too long for a couple of reasons. Number one, Tucker's stock has gone down significantly in the last 2 or 3 days. I mean, I felt like, okay, no one can argue that Ted Cruz has not been one of our most valiant, conservative, ideological warriors. You may not like him. I don't know how likable a guy he is, but he is passionate. He is relentless. He is reliable. He is consistent. And to try and sort of demolish him because he didn't know the population of Iran and he has a different opinion about Iran, I just feel like, you're taking a sledgehammer to something that could, you could have used a screwdriver here. I think it's perfectly fine to disagree about bombing Iran. I get the argument. I don't like the idea of it. But when you approach it the way Tucker Carlson has, who's very smart, he's very educated, he knows a lot, but he reduced that intellect down to a juvenile approach of these series of gotcha moments. And, oh, you said this word, I'm going to hold you to exactly that word and only my definition of that word. But when Ted Cruz just is saying, let's just have a grown-up, we can agree to disagree, but why don't we not get hung up on these little trivial semantics and have a broader discussion about this? That, to me, I just feel like this is beneath Tucker Carlson. I mean, he's always kind of been like this. There are certain personalities that are the smartest kids in the room personalities, and Tucker's kind of one of those. But this is worse. To me, this is a terrible approach on his part. I think it emboldened part of his base, and it certainly emboldens whatever wing of Tucker's following that is anti-Semitic. They are loving it right now. I'm not saying Tucker's anti-Semitic, but I'm saying what he's saying is sure making the anti-Semites happy in his audience. Let's go back to the phones. Hi, caller. How are you today?
Good morning, Neil.
Hi.
This is the Redneck.
Hi, Redneck. It's good to hear your voice again.
Well, I don't know the population of Iran.
Yeah.
But, when you weigh the consequences, if they happen to get an ICBM, I don't think that'd be too good for the United States.
No, I don't either. Now, I think it's very likely that we could shoot it down, but at the same time, it would be a constant threat by people who are not our friends.
Yeah, I would hope that we could shoot it down before it got to us, because the devastation would be pretty bad. So anyway, well, are you and Julie still being heroes?
We're trying. She's actually on vacation this week, but...
well, yeah, but you know what I mean by being heroes.
Yeah.
Remember, beef, it's what's for dinner.
Absolutely.
Have a good day.
Always.
Have a good day, Neil.
You too. All right, thank you. Love hearing from him. He's a good old boy. It's 8:53 on News Talk 107.9. We'll be back. We'll wrap up this hour just ahead. If you'd like to join me on the program, 208-542-1079. I will tell you, it is refreshing to get it off my chest. I also have not known, but I hope by now you understand. I'm not perfect. I do not know the number of active volcanoes in Indonesia. At least I didn't before this morning. There are 120. Over 120. We'll be back after this on News Talk 107.9. All right, 8:56 on News Talk 107.9. Just a couple of minutes left here in this hour, and we go to Bill in Firth. Hi, Bill.
Hey, Neil. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you. You bet. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I was just thinking, Tucker, he's kind of, he's putting it out there to a wider base. I think since he left, I think it was Fox or whatever. I think he just, he's been popular the last few days because people are hating him or liking him. But, he's just putting it out there. He's a semi-journalist that, puts it out there, and he's looking for people to listen to him. And, and some of the things he has to say is right. He's a fellow conservative, so I really don't have a big beef with him. But I think, I don't know if he realizes yet, they've already got the uranium. It's already been through the centrifuges. They've got it. They're just trying to figure out a delivery system. I don't know.
Yeah.
Special nuclear materials, they're not going to, plutonium and hydrogen are a little bit tougher to get, but they've already got the uranium. I think they've probably been the last few weeks hurriedly putting together and trying to figure out what kind of delivery system they're going to use on it, but they've already got it. So they got it. If I were the U.S., I'd go ahead and, give them whatever bombs they need, but they need to take out about every facility or every place it could be hidden because they've already moved that special nuclear material to enrich uranium away from these centrifuges. So who knows where it's at right now. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. And you know what? I think that's a super informed take. I will tell you, Bill, I like your measured approach with Tucker Carlson. He has irritated me the last couple of days because he is going after a fellow conservative pretty harshly and pretty strongly. And so in my mind, I'm like, that's not a great approach. We got to figure out within the orbit of the conservative community to have grown-up discussions about how we disagree. And I think like he's fallen far beneath that standard.
No, that's a good point. Very good point. Yeah. I just hope guys like that and the other people that are kind of aligning with them realize that, the hours and these guys already got it, and they're just trying to figure out how to get it to different places.
Yeah. No, Bill, thank you. We're out of time. I appreciate your call and your thoughts on this. I had the same thought. There clearly is a sense of urgency, and I don't know what our intelligence knows and what Trump knows, what Israel knows, but obviously they are feeling like they've got to act pretty quickly. We'll take a break. After the news, we'll come back. Another hour of the Neal Larson Show coming up. Iranian women chanting death to the dictator. I got to tell you, I love stuff like this. And obviously, your priority one, your biggest burning fire that you have to put out right now is the prospect of Iran getting nuclear weapons. They've been oppressing their people for close to 50 years now. And when I see, you know what I see? I see 1776. When I see the Tiananmen Square in Beijing, I see 1776. It's a common strain throughout humanity. The way God made us, we want freedom. We chose freedom. That's who we are, and it's built and baked in. It's whatever euphemism you want to use or whatever metaphor you apply. It is part of us to want to be free. So at this first opportunity, when the people of Iran, and this may end up being the bigger story. Right now, nukes are the big story. Uranium's the big story. And I don't think Trump's going to wait around very long. He said this could happen in the next week, maybe even less than that. He's playing the uncertainty game, which is a good way to approach this. But I think when it all shakes out in 6 months or a year or two, if they accomplish regime change, this is going to be the big story, is that freedom is restored to the people, of Iran. I should never start drinking a soda at the beginning of the hour because I get these little bubble hiccups and it sounds like I'm about to cry, which that was last hour because I didn't know the gross domestic product of Namibia or something anyway. But when I see this, I'm like, this is like a core primal eternal part of what it means to be a human being, is that you want freedom. And we're seeing it happen organically in Iran. You don't really see much of this on the national news. They're not going to report it because they don't want that part of the narrative. They don't want the American people to have those sympathies toward them. But they can't really hide it. because thanks to Elon Musk and Starlink, there is internet available in Iran. So these videos are getting out, and we are seeing them. And I am thrilled. We should all be praying for the people of Iran right now that they'll have this opportunity to reclaim their God-given liberty and freedom. Let's hope for that. I certainly do. And I hope you do too. Someone said, okay, okay. Immigrants also want to be free. ICE showing up outside Walmart is not freedom. It's anti-American. That should never be allowed here. You know, there's always a vegan at the party, isn't there? There's always somebody that shows up. Yeah, but... Okay. Yes, I'm rubbing my forehead. You know you can hear that now. Whenever I looked at my text line and I read, well, immigrants also want. Well, yeah. Okay. What? There's no comparison here. Yes, they want to be free. That doesn't mean we ignore our own laws. We encourage other nations to be free. We encourage people to win their own freedom in their own countries. That's what the topic is today. Like, at least in the segment here. And Julie's not even here to talk me back from off the cliff. So yeah, these people really. And you know what? I can actually go in right now. It's just a phone number. I'm not going to give it out. Don't worry. But I can change that to be a line. And I might go in and change the phone number, which is what I see, to vegan at the party. Do you want to be? In fact, let me just say, I know you're still listening. Do you want to be vegan at the party? Because I will change your name to vegan at the party if you want me to. Okay. Where was I going with this? Oh, I know. I wanted to update you on the public lands stuff because we're all kind of worried about this. Mike Lee, who, by the way, is a champion for liberty and freedom as well. So, but I got a little concerned when I saw this provision that he is putting into the big, beautiful bill that would allow for the sell. I say sell off. That just has connotations, but it would allow the federal government to dispose of some of their land. It's a fairly small percentage. However, if you're a recreationist, if you're someone who loves access to public lands, you're very, very concerned. And if you've been on social media, obviously there is broad skepticism about this. So one group, they're called the Blue Ribbon Coalition. They are very, very focused on allowing access to public lands for ATV use and being able to get out and access lands for that. I want to read, they actually put out a pretty lengthy comment on this. Someone sent this link to me about the Blue Ribbon Coalition's stance on it. And these are people that really focus in on the public policy implications. So I trust their opinion. Keep in mind, they're looking out for their own people. So this may not, when it comes to hunting or that kind of thing, it might be a little bit different. However, this is what they wrote. Now, I just want to take one paragraph that I think contains the general tenor of their position on this. And I think we can probably lower the DEFCON level just a little bit. Still concerned, but here's what they said. Because the risk to recreation access is high with this proposal, we've been analyzing the language in this bill and speaking with our members, officials in rural Western communities where housing is a top priority, and policy experts. Other organizations have used this time to push a misleading narrative. Many of the maps and articles being shared about this proposal fail to recognize the protections written into this bill that would prevent the vast majority of lands with recreation value from being considered. The proposal excludes all federal land with a designation, like a national park, national monument, national recreation areas, wilderness, etc. It excludes lands with valid existing rights, which will protect grazing leases and mining claims. So if you already have a financial interest in some kind of a claim or a lease, it should be unaffected by this. And I say should be very deliberately, and I'll get to that in a minute. It requires prioritizing lands next to already developed areas or orphaned parcels. So we had a caller call in talking about a chunk of federal land that was smack dab in the middle of someone's ranch, completely enclosed, no public access whatsoever. So I'm assuming that's what an orphaned parcel is. The consultation requirements and right of first refusal for local governments is a strong guardrail that is often left out of other mass disposal policies. Most importantly, to Blue Ribbon Coalition and its members, the proposal excludes lands with an existing right of way. Okay, that's important, which protects many of our backcountry roads and trails. It is also clear that if this proposal becomes law, the policy will move forward with extensive public input, and the maps of what land is actually available for sale will be determined through a public process. So basically, and I would hope, I know it doesn't always work out that way because you get these very belligerent agency heads that don't give a crap what the locals think, and they move ahead anyway. Waters of the U.S. is a good example. I mean, the ESA is a good example. All the things. There's a parade of these. And if you go back in history, you can cite these examples of where the locals were overwhelmingly opposed to some. In fact, if Biden had another term, thank the Lord he does not. But the Lava Ridge Wind Project, another great example of how local input, overwhelmingly opposed by Democrats and Republicans and liberals and conservatives alike, they were still going to move forward with it. So this whole public input thing, I'm a little skeptical about that because in a lot of cases, when the stakes are higher, they don't really weigh that very well at all, if at all. So I look at that. Again, I don't want to dismiss it based on that. Here is, I guess, my underlying concern. It's sort of that little thing that's in the back of your mind going, yeah, but. And that little thing is the slippery slope effect. This proposal, if it survives in the big, beautiful bill, and it may not. I think there is so much opposition to this. I think that, and I can't imagine that the other states' residents don't feel the same way that at first blush Idaho's residents are feeling about this. I think it might get taken out. So it may not be anything that we're even going to have to worry about long term. But if it stays in, it might be tolerable if applied legally and within the parameters of what's included in the big, beautiful bill. But we know what government does with stuff. We know how they'll take a precedent and then they stretch it to apply to this other case. And nothing ever sunsets. They might say, but then if it serves their interest, they extend it. And it may not serve the taxpayer interest or the public interest. But if it serves the lawmaker's interest, then they extend it, they tweak it, they change it. And given what we're learning, and I'm trusting the Blue Ribbon Coalition and their information, they do study this very closely, and they have a very vested interest in making sure that our way of life is preserved, at least through their angle. Then I would say, okay, this proposal may be all right, certainly worth talking about and looking at. However, long term, it could end up being a Pandora's box that we're opening. And that's my concern. Not what's being put before me, but what's being put before me could turn into. And you could say, did you realize? And I'll give you one, this is an obvious example that jumps out at me in my weird brain and memory, but they took the IRS and they turned it into a healthcare system in America. Barack Obama did that. That's the innovation. If I find the kindest word possible that I can, that's how innovative the left is with the powers of government. They're like, well, we can't constitutionally force Americans to buy insurance, but we can tax them, and we'll tax them in a way that requires them to buy insurance. So they're always looking at ways to repurpose existing government power to achieve an agenda. So I'm not saying I'm a hard no on this, but I am saying I would want not just current safeguards, but future safeguards to make sure this doesn't turn into something that grows. That it turns into something bigger and worse than it was. Because quite often, original provisions become unrecognizable after you give it a decade or two or three. And so I wouldn't want that to happen. 9:21, our time, News Talk 107.9. Let me break away here, and we'll continue. Let me open up the phone lines. 208-542-1079 is the number if you'd like to reach us. 9:25 on News Talk 107.9. Neal Larson and Julie Mason is returning tomorrow morning. She sent me a couple of pictures. Grand Ole Opry. Did I say Grand Ole Opry? Yet another reason why I should resign as a talk show host. Grand Ole Opry, tribute to Johnny Cash, apparently, last night. She said it was amazing. And also had one of her friends that I will just say has high culinary standards that they made her eat at a Waffle House. So that's what I know so far about Julie's trip yesterday to Nashville. So anyway, they've been having fun, but it is her travel day today, and she'll be flying back home. She'll be in studio tomorrow. All right, I want to go back to the vegan at the party here because I'm engaging a little bit on text. He's actually one of our regular listeners who we really like. I won't say his name because I don't want to embarrass him. And I didn't quite understand the text because it sounded like it came from one of our trolls. Immigrants also want to be free. ICE showing up outside Walmart is not freedom. It's anti-American. That should never be allowed here. And then I said, so if I break other laws and I'm at Walmart, should the police stay away? And a lot of times when we get a text like that, what they're saying is, because the left will not distinguish between illegal immigration and proper, legal, the right way immigration. So I had assumed that it was that. So I said, I guess I'm confused how being in the Walmart parking lot is an immunity zone somehow. Maybe I'm misreading your text. Were you being sarcastic? He texted back and said, I don't think it's American to force my legal citizen wife to carry her proof of citizenship to Walmart or the doctor's office to prove she's a citizen because of the color of her skin. That's not American. I agree in principle. I agree in principle. I asked for more information. I want more info of what happened. And I will ask this question, and I'll play devil's advocate for a moment, not reflective of any particular position, but I do want to I want to make you think. Is the color of your skin or your ethnic appearance probable cause for law enforcement to ask more questions? Now, I could probably argue either way. If after years and years and years, one party promotes open borders and you have people coming in from Mexico, let's just state it in this particular case, but also other Central Americans have come here as well through Mexico. That is a massive, massive disservice to those immigrants who've come here and done it the right way for that very reason. So I agree that feels not great, that ICE will ask you a question and say, hey, can you prove you're an American? Also, I wonder, and I don't know what the administrative policy is or the rules are here. And that's why I asked. I want to know what really happened. He said, I actually never saw your text. That's racial profiling. I don't think it's okay to do that. I would agree with that. I would agree with that in principle. This is the problem. This is the conundrum that the left has put us in with their horrifically bad policies. Because now when you want to restore order to the country, which means if you are here illegally, then how do you find those who are here illegally? How do you do that? I'll be honest with you. I don't know that I should just be going out and looking for brown people and then verifying whether they're not here legally or not. I don't have the answers here. I'll be honest with you. I don't really like that. But at the same time, what I really, really don't like is that we don't fix the problem because of that. So let's go to the phones, 208-542-1079. Caller, welcome to the show this morning. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
Good. So I just was listening to your last text message, and that is a tough call because, like, I myself am Native American, but I will pass as white. And so I'm not going to be treated like some of the other Native Americans are going to be treated. But yet I'm a registered member of a recognized tribe.
Okay.
So it you know, and I'll use that to my advantage, just to be honest, you know, because I will pass as white. And I don't know. It's a tough call because I'm the same as them, but I'm going to pass because my skin is lighter.
Yeah. Well,
you know?
Yeah, no, I gotcha. I appreciate your call, and whether we like it or not, appearance does play a factor. If you, I don't know. There's not really anything I can say. We're caught between a couple of really bad options. We're left with terrible, terrible options if we want to adhere to the right. Okay, somebody just texted in making an Elizabeth Warren joke, which I will not embellish. All right, but that is kind of funny. I'll be honest with you. All right, I wanted to play this for you. Victor Davis Hanson. If you're no, we're over time for our news break. Let me take that. We'll hit the reset button here, and we'll come back and continue after this. At times we have, I call them curveball issues, where something just emerges kind of randomly or organically on the show. And the whole vegan at the party text is one of those. I went to my research assistant and asked, is it the policy of ICE to stop random Hispanic people to prove their legal status in the U.S.? ICE does not have a policy that allows agents to randomly stop Hispanic people just to check their immigration status. Such racial profiling is illegal, and courts have consistently ruled that stops based solely on ethnicity are unconstitutional. What they are allowed to do, ICE and CBP within 100 miles of the border, can stop individuals and ask about their immigration status only if they have reasonable suspicion supported by specific articulable facts, not simply because someone looks Hispanic. Traffic stops require at least reasonable suspicion. Vehicle searches demand probable cause. Warrantless stops or arrests, especially in public places or via traffic pretext, are only legal under these standards. And then it goes into the legal protections against racial profiling and Supreme Court precedent. And we're not going to go into all of that. But I would say if that actually happened, then ICE is acting outside of its authority. So I'm not here to defend ICE. What I'm here to defend is upholding the rule of law in America, which is if you're here illegally, you need to go home. It's that simple. We can prioritize who goes home, and we can also have discussions about how we identify who's here illegally. And no doubt it's made far more problematic by years and years of an open border policy that has brought in millions and millions of illegals, and it creates these moral conundrums. But I'm trying to get clarification from the person texting in that actually happened, because he said, I don't think it's American to force my legal citizen wife to carry her proof of citizenship to Walmart or the doctor's office to prove she's a citizen because of the color of her skin. That's not American. I would say back, that's not the policy of ICE either. So if that did happen, there then that's not what ICE is supposed to be doing, nor do I believe they are doing, unless you have some agent that's acting improperly and illegally. So I want to make sure that we're navigating this responsibly, and I don't know if him saying the Walmart text that started all of this was just a hypothetical situation that he thinks might happen to his wife, or if it actually did happen to his wife. And I think that's very, very relevant, because I want to know if I'm dealing with a hypothetical or if I'm dealing with a real situation here. So I await that. And that's the text I have now. Did that actually happen? I stopped your wife in the Walmart parking lot and made her prove her citizenship. I think whether or not that really happened is important. Oh, okay. It didn't even happen. All of that. You know what? I've been operating under the premise that something terrible happened to one of my listeners' wives. Prioritizing who is sent back is the issue. Did not happen to my wife, but it is happening in other parts of the country. Okay, well, do you know, I say this with gentle effect. You understand what the media will do with an extremely exceptional case? Okay, that's not the policy of ICE. That is not what's happening all over America just because it happened perhaps once or twice here and there. The whole reality of an entire population is not living under that systemic oppression and fear. They shouldn't have the fear. Maybe they do. But that's not the policy of the United States, what was described here. So, okay. So, again, that's the most important. It didn't even happen. Not to my listener or his wife. So, and I do think that is a relevant point here. Yeah, maybe it has happened in other places, but that is not the policy throughout ICE to do it like that. I will also say, though, he said, I pray you're right. All right. I haven't heard of any examples like that around here. And I don't know that we have a strong ICE. I know ICE is here, but much of our illegal immigrant population is working on farms. You may get a little bit in the hospitality industry and maybe in some of the construction sectors, but those are really low priorities for Trump right now. I think you're seeing ICE in the big cities, and they're going after the thugs and the criminals and the gangbangers, and so I think that is probably what we're talking about here. And I think in that environment, that's more likely to happen. But I don't. I will say, and I go to big box stores a lot. I've never seen ICE agents there, ever. I don't even think I know an ICE agent. And I'd be curious to know, have any of my listeners who also get out and do things, have you seen a presence of ICE? I don't think the Border Patrol does much here, but have you seen any of these immigration enforcement agencies out and about, tracking people down, looking for? I don't know that. Now, obviously, we know some of that has happened when a report's been called in, like with the Stephanie Mickelson Farms issue that we had earlier this year. So when there's a specific report given, they respond to that. But in terms of just being out there on the hunt looking for people, I don't believe that's even happening. So, all right, 945-208-542-1079 if you'd like to be on the program. Did you see Pete Hegseth up on Capitol Hill? Boy, I think we might have to update whatever journal that is that keeps track of the mental illness. We had to add Trump derangement syndrome a few years ago. There might be a Hegseth derangement syndrome. These, especially women, I don't know what it is, but the women lawmakers on the Democrat side, they lose their ever-loving minds when they get a chance to talk to Hegseth. This is Alyssa Slotkin. She was one of the new fresh faces that the Democrats floated for a couple of weeks. I think it was back during State of the Union time. And I think she kind of failed her audition. But here she is grilling Hegseth.
Not want citizens to be scared of their own military. I love the military. I served alongside my whole life, so I'm worried about you tainting it. Have you given the order? Have you given the order that they can use lethal force against honor? I want the answer to be no. Please tell me it's no. Have you given the order?
Senator, I'd be careful what you read in books and believing it, except for the Bible.
Oh, my God. So your former predecessor, I guess that's not enough for you. Okay, on Iran, I don't think there's a debate.
Okay, I think Hegseth threw in the except for the Bible just to trigger Alyssa, because we all know what Democrats do when you reference scripture. There's Bible derangement syndrome among the left, and they lose it when that happens. Here's another one. This is Senator Kelly, and this is one where I actually think Hegseth maybe violated the decorum of the Senate a little bit. It's not really his job to enforce time limits, but he reminded Senator Kelly that her time was up, which, if it is a violation of the decorum, I'm all in favor of it.
Influence personnel decisions in your department, yes or no?
I believe your time is up, Senator.
Oh, it is not up to you to tell me when my time is up.
Well, the time
And I am going to say, Mr. Secretary, you're either feckless or complicit. You're not in control of your department. You are unserious. It is shocking. You're not combating anti-Semitism within your ranks. It's a dangerous and pivotal time in our nation's history. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back. And I don't appreciate the smirk, sir. You are the Secretary of Defense.
The time of the
And then to that, I would have said, it's not up to you to determine my facial expressions. So, but he didn't say that, which is okay. Now, one of my favorites, Mazie Hirono. There is something incredibly entertaining about this woman. Hawaii Senator Mazie Hirono, and I would like, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to get in a room with Democrat senators, give them some truth serum. And one of my many questions that I would ask them would be, do you really take Mazie Hirono seriously? Like, is she a serious person?
Order by the president. I'm going to ask you once again, to shoot peaceful protesters in the legs, would you carry out such an order from the president?
Senator, as I've said before, of course, I reject the premise of your question and the characterization that I would be given or are given unlawful orders. It's all meant to attempt to smear the commander-in-chief, and I won't fall
that the
for it.
president, ordered by the president.
Okay, so he is exactly right. And this was a tactic, they keep using it, but it's so ineffective, where they create these hypothetical situations. And they did it during his confirmation hearing. And they continue to do it now, where they say things like, well, you have committed to support the president of the United States. Hypothetically, if he implemented genocide against redheads, would you support the genocide against the redhead? Like, it's actually kind of a gotcha question. It's a question that is actually unanswerable. It's asked in a yes or no fashion, but the premise is so flawed and so corrupted, you really can't answer either way. Are you still beating your wife? I mean, it's one of those kinds of questions where you start with something that is not true. And the thing that's not true is that Donald Trump would not give the order to shoot people in the legs. He wouldn't. Now, the previous defense secretary, Esper, wrote a book, and he wants to sell the book. And he said, Donald Trump asked me if it would be okay to shoot protesters in the legs. And I'm thinking, just because you asked the question doesn't mean you'd actually do it. And I don't even know if Donald Trump asked the question. But even if he did ask the question, you can't. To me, that might be illegal. I remember I took a gun safety class one time, And we asked about all sorts of scenarios. If you have an intruder in your home, could you do this or could you do that? Or, but we've all done that. But if you've been driving through a remote area, and believe me, I have. I just drove all the way to Alaska and back. I've seen so many square miles of Alberta and British Columbia that I'll be dreaming about it for the next 5 years. And I will tell you, the thought crossed my mind. And please don't hold this against me. I've already had enough confessions today about not knowing the average death age in Tunisia earlier today. But I'm going to make another confession here. I thought if I were a murderer, I could probably get away hiding the body out here somewhere. Now, that doesn't make me a murderer. That doesn't mean I want to go out and murder someone. But I will ask the question. I want to see what happens with our text line if I ask you this question. Have you ever wondered if you could get away with murder? And how would you do it if you did? Now, maybe I'm the only one, and I might get referred to mental health counseling. But if you're driving through a remote area, and we live in a very true crime saturated realm with lots of documentaries and podcasts and TV shows and stories about murder, and you look at, that's where they went wrong, or, they made their mistake here, or whatever. Is that, am I weird? Am I the weird one for going, I wonder how I'd get away with murder if I committed murder? That doesn't mean I want to commit murder. It's more of a mental exercise than an intention thing. Maybe Donald Trump was just saying, is it even legal, to shoot him in the legs? I'm not saying we should. I'm just saying, is it legal to do that? It's a legal question. It's a curiosity question. It's like if you're sitting in a law class at law school and you're like, okay, well, would it be legal to do that if they're threatening their communities or the livelihood? Anyway, so in the array of non-lethal responses here, what could be the array of options that I have? So even if Donald Trump said that, and I don't believe that he did, because I think you have these former Trump people that hate him, and they want to either twist something he said or exaggerate something that he said, and sell a bunch of books. That's what they're trying to do. That's their goal. And I don't believe that. So back to the point here, the Pete Hegseth part of this is they asked this question that's designed to slander the president of the United States and put another person you don't like in a gotcha situation. I would just say that question is not answerable because the premise is flawed. We'll be back. That will do it for the show today. Thank you, everyone. It's been fun today. Julie's back tomorrow, and we'll see you then. Clay and Buck up next.